Welcome, everybody, back to Marketing Spotlight. We're here with Jen Capstraw, email extraordinaire and self-professed email geek. Excited to have her with me today. And Jen is with Women of Email, and she's among one of the most sought-after speakers in the email space. Been at many of the digital summits. In fact, just spoke last week. Jen and I got to meet for the first time, and we got great feedback on that session, talking about, what was it, the email feng shui, right?
Feng shui of modern email, yeah.
That was it. She is, as I mentioned, co-founder of Women in Email, a professional association comprised of 4,000 plus women in 40 plus countries on 6 continents. Pretty impressive. She's worked with brand name and Fortune 500 clients in a wide range of B2C verticals, plus significant client-side B2B experience. She's won many awards, 3 Association Trends All Media Awards, and 6 Associated Press Awards for excellence in journalism. And I also have a background in journalism, haven't gone to J school, so maybe we'll get a chance to get into that, Jen. So welcome, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks. I'm trying to share this to Women of Email right now so they can join us live. Hi, we're live and post. You really dug into my biography there.
I'm a pro.
Yeah, I started out in radio and TV back in the 90s, and my claim to fame, 1998, my side hustle was I was the Virginia Lottery ball picker on TV, the hostess. That's how I paid my rent.
Oh, I have so many questions off of that now. But let's get into your passion here, which is Women of Email. Tell us more about that.
Women of
How
Email.
did you start it? What are we up to?
Started in 2016. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, 100% volunteer run, and 100% donation funded. And in fact, the founders, we funded the organization personally for the first 2.5 years before we geared up some fundraising efforts. We organized in response to the lack of female representation on stage at email marketing and marketing conferences. There was 3 out of 4 of the founders were speaking at the same conference. And I believe that conference was somewhere between 25 and 30% female speakers. And it was just kind of painfully obvious. And one of the co-founders, Kristen Bond, she wrote an article about it, and it started a conversation on an industry listserv. And ultimately, a group of like-minded ladies found one another, either responding to that discussion or DMing the people who were responding to that discussion. Within 24 hours, Women of Email was born, and we are approaching member number 5,000 now. So our Speakers Bureau is a big part of what we do, helping match our members with thought leadership opportunities. We're about to relaunch our mentoring program. We help match freelancers and consultants with opportunities when those, it's not a big part of what we do, but more and more there's demand for, like, where do I get talent? We post job openings. We're bringing a lot of transparency to compensation for the email specialty. Email is pretty challenging and requires some expertise that is not common. And so it pays pretty well. And we have been, we ask our job posters to share comp, and it's helped make women aware of their value. And we've had several members say that since the organization formed, they've doubled their salaries. One member said she's tripled hers, just based on that transparent information, giving them negotiating power.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Because as we all know, compensation gap is a problem. I saw it myself. Some people I've had report to me and said, this isn't right. We got to get people equal pay for doing the same job. So that's great that you guys are doing that. Why did you think, from the conference that you went to, did you do further intel and to find out why there was a potential gap here in women who were choosing email marketing as a profession?
Well, there are a few different reasons that we've uncovered. One of them in particular, I asked that conference organizer, why is it that you don't have more women speakers at your conference? Why aren't you thinking about this or prioritizing this? And he said, I just lean on my network for speakers. I reach out to my friends in the industry and I ask them to speak. I ask them who they know. And there's a lot of studies that will let you know that men professionally, their networks are primarily made up of other men. and women tend to have more of a 50-50 representation in their network. Like if you look at someone's LinkedIn, a woman's going to be more likely to be 50% women, 50% men. Men are going to be majority men. And it's not an intentional slight toward women. It's just that when they reach into their network, that's a man-heavy group of people. And also, if they're not prioritizing it or thinking about it, then it's not going to happen if there's no awareness. So bringing awareness to the issue was a big part of it. And also, there's this idea that of meritocracy, right? The best people are going to get the opportunities, and maybe the best people just aren't women is a common misconception. But it's just that women are, as they're being introduced to the workplace, you know, when you're a young, recent grad, gung-ho, I'm going to do great things, you know, you come in with a lot of gusto into the workforce. And then there are studies that show by age 25, a lot of women are feeling defeated already because they've just been punched back and punched back and punched back. And they're dealing with struggles that young men are not up against. And so it's around age 25 that the confidence gap starts growing. And
I've heard this, yeah.
Yeah, women are less likely to ask for the opportunity. They're more likely to really struggle with their worthiness. When it comes to applying for jobs, they're like, oh, I don't meet every single qualification. Oh, I'm not qualified for this job. I'm not applying. A man will apply for a job if he only meets 25 to 50% of the qualifications, and he has just as good a shot at it as a woman who's got that same amount of qualifications. So the women were not necessarily going for these opportunities when they were presented. And the Women of Email Facebook community is, I think it's 7,000 or 8,000 members now. And because we normalized the idea of like, hey, you have something to say, you have a story to tell, let's connect you with this conference or this webinar or this podcast. And we were making headway and getting more women on stage and bringing attention to gender parity on stage. Well, then it became normalized. And so women were going for this without our help. They were seeing people in their network doing it, and they're like, well, I can do that too. And now almost every email conference is, if not 50-50, it's a slight majority now, female speakers. And that's a huge shift since 2016 in just 4 years.
That's fantastic. And so what's next? Where do you plan to take Women of Email?
We actually just expanded our board. We had one of our co-founders step back to make room for some new leadership, and then we added a couple of extra seats to our board of directors. And so that's more woman power to make things happen. We just had strategic planning over earlier this month. Over the course of 2 weekends, we spent 8 hours putting our heads together. Like, what programs are we running? What programs can we do better? Who's going to own what? Who's going to be on these committees and chairing things and getting things done? So we have got a whole strategic plan mapped out for 2021. And the ultimate goal is to get to a point where we can generate enough donations in order to hire someone to do all of this operational stuff, or else outsource to an association management company. And then that would free us up to make so much more possible if we could hire 1 to 3 people to get things done operationally, because our personal time is being depleted by things like approving applications, fixing people's profiles, doing all of the one-on-one matching of mentors and speakers. And so that's the next big step. We are right now reorganizing. We are reorganizing from private foundation to public charity so that we can accept much larger donations, and companies that do employee match, they will start matching those donations. We didn't realize when we first organized that we couldn't get those charity matches. So we've got attorneys working hard on that, CPAs working hard on that. And so then we'll be able to have some money. And we made the organization free to everybody so that it's accessible to the people who need it the most. There is a level of exclusivity to organizations that require you to pay dues. So we're opening up to everyone. And another program that I did fail to mention is our scholarship program. We work with conferences to make them accessible to people who don't have the funds to attend. So we get comp passes. There's one conference that actually will also pay for your lodging, activities, and meals, but just matching people who otherwise wouldn't have those opportunities. And once you get to a conference, you're networking, you're learning, and it can take one conference to level up your career and take you to the next step. So that's something we're really proud of. We've sent hundreds of women to conferences.
Yeah, that's great. We had the idea of opening up we call it a scholarship, but because of the pandemic this year, and unfortunately a lot of people, even in marketing, losing their jobs, and said should not be a reason for you not to be able to continue your education. And so we offered a scholarship to our virtual summits this year. Even if it's not able to do kind of the networking and stuff you'd want to do at a normal conference, sometimes it's just maybe that kick in the pants you need, or at least still feel a part of that community, because job loss can be a tough thing. So it's worked out pretty well for us as well. So that's great. So it sounds like, though, when you started this, you've learned a lot that you probably didn't know you were going to be getting yourself into.
Absolutely. I didn't think of myself as a feminist activist leader, and all of a sudden, I'm on stages talking about diversity, inclusion in the email industry, and had to learn a lot really fast along with my fellow co-founders. I do have some experience in association management. I worked for an association for over 5 years. That's where I sent my very first email marketing campaign, actually, in 2002. So, and also I'm a sorority woman. So, and I'm involved in my alumni chapter, and I've been in leadership roles on the national level, on the alumni chapter level. So, and including an online version of an alumni group. So all of these things combined came together kind of perfectly to launch this association. But the thing I think I've learned the most is about community, online communities, and keeping people engaged. So because we are volunteer run, we fall very short on the PR side of things and the marketing side of things, and telling people what we're doing and what we're accomplishing, because we're spending all of our time doing these things. And so we focused on, well, let's just keep our members happy and keep them engaged. And we'll worry about that later, especially when we want to start pursuing those big corporate donations. But just keeping people connected and talking is what I've gotten really good at. And I've learned a lot from our community.
That's great. And beyond that, people who are watching might be interested. You probably have a ton of career advice, right? And we've talked about that a little bit, and especially with your role in Women of Email. And you went from a journalism background. You said you worked in association, and that's where you've got into doing the email. When did you realize the email was your passion, or that was going to be the career path you would take? And what advice would you have for anybody who maybe not only going into email marketing, but realizes, you know what, here's a passion, something I really want to follow?
You do not choose email. Email chooses you. It is a very interesting industry. Social media people are like, oh, I want to be a social media manager. And so they pursue that, but nobody goes, I want to pursue email. As I said, I sent my first campaign in 2002. I'm at this association. We had a trade show coming up, and somebody said, we should invite people to our conference with an email. And that seemed like a crazy idea. Like, oh yeah, let's do that. And I actually found the campaign, and I put it in some of my presentations. When I do workshops for Digital Summit, I talk about that campaign. And obviously it did not occur to me at that point in time that email would be my life. Every now and then we just sent out an email campaign, and this was before canned spam. So we didn't even have an opt-out button on this email, but we did segment it, and we didn't even know what segmentation meant. So it was a small part of my job there. And then I moved to New York City. I got a job in a B2B furniture manufacturing company, like high quality ergonomic furniture. Actually, this chair is a human scale task chair with dynamic recline technology. And it was there.
Look at you marketing the chair. I love it.
Well, I spent 5 years
habits.
marketing this chair.
Right.
And while I was there, I was running communications and digital marketing. We had a whole website makeover project, and we wanted to turn it into a lead gen machine. There was email nurturing associated with that. And we projected we'd make about $1 million in marketing generated revenue in the first year. And instead we made 10 million. So that was a big success. I was like, wow, like really my ideas made $10 million in 1 year. That's better than your like #1 enterprise sales rep. I think I'm onto something here. And
that's how you get addicted to email.
Yes,
it's that immediate results that you get from it, and it just works so well.
The ROI is unbelievable. The last study I saw was 42 to 1, $42 for every dollar you invest in email.
I believe it.
So my next job, well, I had a quick blip at the NFL alumni. It's 3 months, and an experience I'll have to tell you about some other time, but moved on quickly to my next job, which was email strategist. And it was at that moment that email became my entire life. And I was working with higher ed clients, and I figured out my sweet spot for them was re-engagement of their dead leads. And I could just shake money out of the trees, man, with these re-engagement campaigns. I got good at them. And as soon as I had strategist in my job title, everybody came knocking. It turns out email strategists are in very high demand, and talented ones who are willing to roll up their sleeves and get dirty and make it happen, they're rare. So it was very easy at that point to just kind of keep moving on. So I joined an email service provider on their professional services team, doing strategy for their clients, and then moved on to another technology company in a similar capacity, and then another technology company where I was like, hey, you know, I'm a speaker now, I'm a thought leader, people know who I am, I would like to be your evangelist to the email industry. And they said, okay, yes, we would like that too. So every opportunity just led to the next thing. And your question was, what kind of advice do I have for someone who wants a career in email? Because nobody wants a career in email. It's a necessary evil that gets delegated to you. And then you discover how interesting, complex, and cool it can be. And you find yourself connecting with people in the industry through communities like Women of Email and the Email Geeks Slack group. And if you're in email and you're not in Email Geeks Slack, you need to go to email.geeks.chat and apply now. It's an amazing community. And there's this like-mindedness, there's a camaraderie among people in the email industry because they're all problem solvers. Like there's so much diversity and people are so different, but because it's so challenging, it's a puzzle every day is like, how am I gonna get this to render correctly? Or how am I gonna solve this problem? Or how am I gonna personalize this? The glitchy difficulties of email is what brings us all together. And I don't know, you go to an event that's all email geeks and it's just like they're your people. It's amazing. And I think that is unique to this niche. I don't see that with other email or other digital marketing channels or marketing across the board, that kind of magic.
I would agree. And I've been to a lot of conferences, and I would say I've been to many email conferences as well, because I was charged email back in the day. And I would say that you're right. There's a likeness there that people just get each other. And I've noticed in some of the others, there's a bit of a, dare I say, like a pissing contest of, you know, well, I do this or whatever. And you really notice that even with developers and programmers and graphic designers, you don't get that as much on the email side. There's a little bit more of a, because of that problem solving nature, they know that they've all got a little bit of war wounds in stories that they could tell.
There's a lot of sharing of knowledge too. People can just post to these communities like, I can't get my dark mode font to work. What's going on? Here's my code. And 10 people will be like, oh, you just need to tweak this or this or this. It's amazing.
But you know, it's a bit of a rising tide lifts all boats mentality, because if everyone who's doing email marketing is, you know, following the white label, doing it correctly, we all win, because inboxes are going to be cleaner. People are going to respect email marketing more. And so no matter where you go across brand or company or getting emails from your kid's school, whatever, if the emails are cleaner and work better, everyone benefits.
100%.
Yeah.
The
Hey,
email
let's switch. I'm gonna
is
switch
wildly
gears.
effective.
I'm
Okay.
gonna switch gears on you a little bit. So we heard about your background, how you got into email, but you left journalism, right?
I did.
So what do you miss anything in journalism? And more specifically, I'd like to ask, do you think your background in journalism prepared you for this? And if so, how?
Absolutely. So I worked in TV and radio, and I was a talent slash news person. And my last job was I was like the assistant news director of a 7-station radio group in the Savannah market. And I was doing news on 7 radio stations. And when you are in news, you have to be an expert on something new every single day and speak with authority. And I was young when I embarked on this career, and I rose through the ranks very quickly. I wasn't paid well. I was very poor and very hungry, but on paper, I was showing a lot of success. Somehow I am able to tune the world out, focus in on that moment, get it done, and speak confidently and with authority on whatever it is I need to speak to in that moment. So that has tied in very nicely with this transition into being a thought leader in the email industry, something I definitely know and have a lot of confidence in.
Right.
But it served me well to become a public speaker. And it seems like there's a lot of former journalists who end up in digital marketing one way or another.
Former journalists, former attorneys. I hear that a lot in the marketing space.
Former attorneys.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'm amazed how many I run across. They would refer to it as recovering attorney. I've heard that quite a bit. Do you think journalists and journalism is just getting a bad rap right now? Like, is it really warranted?
I feel so bad for today's journalists.
I say, as do I.
And I think about, what if I stuck with it, and how would I feel right now? And I thank my lucky stars that I'm not faced with the challenges of today's journalists. I did become acquainted with someone who was a TV journalist. It was 2017. And the fake news, being attacked and told, you're fake news, was harming his soul. Like, it was just making his life miserable. What he was doing as a profession and took so much pride in was just being poked at on the daily. And that has continued to get worse and worse and worse. Something that I think is really interesting about journalism right now is that the most esteemed sources of news are gated, and you've got to pay for that. And then the ones that are perpetuating this idea of fake news, or they're like kind of skimming reality, those are the ones that are wide open and accessible. And it's not a job that pays a lot of money. So like, that's especially problematic. These people they're important. The truth is important. Information is important. And we need to let them do their jobs and appreciate them. I feel that the tide will turn. We're just in a moment of heightened conflict, right?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I remember years ago, I started off in sports journalism, and I had friends that stuck with it. And then when the internet came along, and it felt like, there was always that race to be first. And I remember asking them, I'm like, is this making your job harder? And they're like, no, not really. And I wish I could ask them that question now, because I know I would get a different answer. And, when we saw newsrooms flip to be more of that, like you were saying, the oh shoot, we're not getting the classified advertising, we're struggling, how many of them closed? When they flipped to be more of that internet newsroom, and then social media came along, I think that just completely changed the profession. And I don't know if there is a going back, to be honest with you. I don't know.
Well, there was a lot of change when I was in radio and TV. There was deregulation and new technology, and that technology especially hit the radio industry hard, the voice tracking technology. And there was less of a need for a lot of radio talent. So you could have one person broadcasting in multiple cities. So one person's doing the job of 10 people potentially. That's 9 jobs lost because of technology. And then the smaller radio groups were being, and TV stations too, they were just being gobbled up by these giant corporations. And that was kind of the beginning of all of this. And now it's trending in a different direction for some different reasons. But yeah, the whole industry is kind of a hot mess right now, and they're struggling to make money. Actually, I worked at, my first job out of school was at a TV station. I was working on the assignment desk, and they had just launched their first website back in '96. And they were like, let's put some news stories on our website, because the website was just about the TV station and the talents initially. They're like, we're going to have a news page, and we're going to have 3 articles per day. And Jen, you get to write them. And they created a little form that I would fill out, and it would put up my 3 news stories. I got to pick what are the top 3 local news stories each day. And it's just kind of mind-blowing. The amount of content we get from news now is overwhelming. And as journalists, we were all consuming that on the AP Wire all day long, reading news nonstop, the way that everybody reads news today. And I remember the moment that like it started hurting my heart, and I didn't know how much evil was in the world. And within my first 3 months working at a TV station in the newsroom, the Richard Jewell controversy, they believed that he had set a bomb at the Olympics in Atlanta. Yeah. And I was reading about cases of child abuse that like never made the headlines, and we never even talked about. And this is the kind of stuff that was coming down the wire all day long. And I'm like, the world is a terrible place, and I hate this job. It's awful. And now we're all feeling that.
Yeah, it's a grind. It is definitely a grind. Speaking of like feeling that with this year being what it's been, we don't need to rehash it. How do you think 2020 has affected email marketing?
It has really shifted the type of messaging that folks are putting out. The way that companies responded to COVID was appalling, right? We're all getting these emails from companies like, we haven't been on their lists in 5-10 years. And it's like, well, here's what we're doing to deal with this pandemic at this moment in time. And it's like, I don't even remember you. Did I buy something from you once? And it made national headlines. Like, bad email was a national headline by April. And we learned from that. Well, empathy has been something that folks in the email industry have been talking a lot about over the past several years, and sending relevant email that delivers value. You shouldn't be selling, you should be building relationships. And so all of these COVID fumbles made that incredibly obvious. And then we start seeing social issues really becoming more and more infused with email marketing. Now, we've been seeing that for a few years. I've been talking about that since 2017, 2018, especially Penzeys Spices just goes hard on the political and social issues and creates promotional campaigns around them, as a matter of fact, and has created this huge following. So that was an early stage trend that we were seeing, and that started peaking after the election in 2016. And then come mid 2020, Black Lives Matter became kind of reached critical mass as an issue that more and more people were embracing and brands were embracing. I looked at my inbox to see who was talking about Black Lives Matter 2019 and earlier in my promotions tab as compared to 2020. One brand was talking about Black Lives Matter in 2018 and 2019. It was Penzeys Spices. 2020, I can't tell you how many dozens of messages I got about Black Lives Matter and Juneteenth and what we can and should do. Pride campaigns have been big the past few years as well. So we're really seeing this meshing of personal issues, values, if they are closely held by leadership at these companies and they find their way into their email marketing or their marketing just generally and broadly speaking, then it builds stronger relationships with people who align with those beliefs. it is going to repel the people who disagree with those beliefs. And then the natural response to that is, you shouldn't be talking about these issues at all. You know, I buy candy bars from you. Like, I don't want to hear you talking about these social issues. And it's not entirely exclusive to these types of issues that seem to be more aligned with democratic causes or liberal, progressive. You know, we do have brands that are well known for their extremely conservative positions. And because it is authentic, these are values that they are holding dear, it's not harming them. So it does more good than harm to stand for something, but you cannot virtue signal, or people are going to see right through it.
Yeah, but don't you think too, there's like whatever the value prop is of your email, kind of what you promised your subscribers you were going to send and be about, you should sort of stick with that. And if it becomes a hot button or political issue, if you haven't already been talking about those things or don't have that in your value prop, then that's when it really feels like, well, you've just veered off course and you're about something you didn't tell me you were going to be about.
That's a hard statement to respond to. Because yeah, when I sign up for promotions from brand X, I'm probably not expecting something that could be construed as political.
Yeah.
And then I get it. Well, you control your inbox. If you don't want that messaging in your inbox, it's very easy for you to unsubscribe, create a filter. You could even report it as spam if you want to, like, you know, hit them a little bit in the gut. But, and I did talk to one marketer last year. Their Pride campaign, about a third of the clicks they got on that campaign were on the unsubscribe button. And the social sentiment that they got on that campaign on Facebook especially was predominantly negative. And they said, you know what, this is actually a value that's intertwined with our objective and our mission as a company, and we're not going to stop. It wasn't out of the blue that they were doing this. And I can't disclose what the company is. I don't have permission to talk about that campaign. I just had the opportunity to speak with the marketer who led it, and they're not going to stop. It could seem to someone that this is inappropriate and not what I signed up for, but as they saw it, it was aligned with their mission. So they were going to continue to do it. And I wonder how that campaign did in 2020.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that goes into a little bit of the branding, right? And really, and again, knowing your audience. And I think if you know your audience and they're going to be sensitive to a particular topic, I think asking yourself, but going back to I think I blocked it out of my mind how bad those emails were at the beginning of the pandemic that you brought up. And I remember making a joke and I said, email marketers who are sitting at their desk and the PR and the lawyer and whoever else is coming to say, we got an idea for an email, just run.
Yeah, it's a shame that a lot of marketers, they didn't get any say in those campaigns.
Clearly they didn't.
They were told, you're going to do this, you're going to send this, you're going to send it to everybody because we've got to make a statement. And, how many people care about what you're doing in your warehouse in Alabama if, like, I'm not in there with you?
It quickly became the Me Too strategy. Well, if they're doing it, we have to do it. And it's like, no, I don't think so.
Me Too, not meaning the movement, right?
Yeah, not that.
Just like feeling an obligation to do something because everyone else is. Yeah.
Hey, this was a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. We try to keep these around 20, 30 minutes, but we hit this one. This was fantastic. We appreciate you being a friend of Digital Summit. And again, want to throw out one more time how everyone can get involved, Women of Email.
Check out our website, womenofemail.org. If you would like to give us money, there's a donate button. We really need it badly. And if you are a woman or you're gender non-conforming, non-binary, you're welcome to join the organization. So look for the application on our website, then go to Facebook and find our Facebook community. It is super, super active and supportive. Women of Email.
Excellent. Again, Jen Capstraw, everybody. Thanks again, Jen. We'll see you.
Thanks, Kip. Appreciate the opportunity.